Good morning, or depending on where you are, good afternoon, good evening. This is Kev, your life coach, and I wanted to make a video about mental programming. Why is mental programming important? Wow. Mental programming is, man, it's crucial. It's crucial. It's super important. And this is why. Because most of how we function and operate on our day-to-day is based on how we're programmed. Okay? You're really just like a computer, but you're much smarter. You know what's funny is I never have to burp until I start making these videos. And then when I start making a video, I just have to burp like back to back. Like, what is that? Like, every time without fail. So, excuse me, I may be doing, a few more times, but it is what it is. I just noticed that though, like, I never have to burp until I start making a video. That's hilarious. But okay. So as I was saying, most of how we operate and function is based off a program. It's like we're on autopilot, right? Here's some examples. Well, at least I'll give at least one example. When you get mad about something, right? Say, I mean, whatever it is. Say you're driving, right? And someone cuts you off and you start raging. That's based off of a program. That's based on how you are programmed to react. And more importantly, let me say it this way, especially, definitely this would apply to adults. Teenagers, I would say, yeah, like if you're 16, 17, I would say this would apply to you too. But the way you respond to, say, like being cut off in traffic is based on how you have programmed yourself. Right? Now, that's one difference between you and a computer. A computer can't program itself. You, however, are responsible for your own programming. Right? And so just, just think about it. Like, somebody cuts you off in traffic, you get angry, upset, and you start raging. Right? You did not make a conscious decision to get angry and to rage. And whatever you say, you didn't make a conscious decision to do any of that. If you flip the person off that cut you off, look, I don't know. In the past, I've gotten so upset that I've thrown things at people's cars that had tried to cut me off purposely. Which I'm not gonna get into details on that, but and that ended up almost turning into a big fight, and police came and all kind of it was not a wonderful situation. But I'm just saying, that was me operating off of a program. I programmed myself to respond like that, right? When you get you hear some news or something, and you become sad, or you become depressed, right? Or if you're ever jealous, over what someone else has, or just jealous of someone for whatever reason. All these things are programs: anxiety, depression, even happiness, joy, peace. Most of I'd definitely say most, if not all, of your emotional reactions to any given situation, how you react or how you don't react, is based on how you have programmed yourself. And this is why that's important. Prisons are full of people. Excuse me, I just want to get a little bit of tea. Try to finish this while it's hot. Prisons are full of people that are in there because of how they were programmed, how they either programmed themselves or allowed themselves to be programmed, right? Because something will happen and then they'll just react, and their reaction is based off of program, and at the moment, it makes sense to react the way they do, and it just whatever, like, it happens without them even thinking about it, and the proof of that is when these individuals get sat down in the county jail and they have time to think about what they did. Usually, that's when regret starts to set in, right? That's when they start to come to themselves and be like, oh boy, what in the world did I just do? And then they start thinking about the consequences of what they did. They start thinking about how they just ruined their life. And then they start thinking about, over what did I do this? And then they start realizing that, whatever happened, how small and minor it was, right? They were operating on a program. It was a mental program. Either they programmed themselves or allowed themselves to be programmed by someone else. That's one reason why, the way you're programmed is super important. And there's so many examples that I could give. But, two people can have the same exact thing happen to them and react totally different. Why is that? That's solely based upon how the individuals have been programmed. It's based on their mental programming, right? You could get cut off in traffic and be like, whew, that could have been an accident. I'm glad that, that I didn't hit that person, or I'm glad they didn't hit me, or I'm glad nothing happened, or, you know, on and on. You can respond like that. You can respond and be pissed off. And you could respond in a number of ways in between. Like, there's no like one way to respond to any situation that happens to you. And just because your reaction makes sense to you doesn't mean it's smart. Right? People kill people based off of their mental programming. And over the most trivial things, the smallest things, people lose their lives over. Right? I know people, like, and I give so many examples, people that get, shot and killed over shoes, over a coat, over a bike, over a car. Right? It's how they're programmed. And so when you're operating on a program, you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just doing it. It's like a reflex. It's an automatic response. Like, say, like, if you go to the doctor, if you've ever been to the doctor and, he had you sit down. Hold on 1 second. I need some tea. That tea is so good. Right? The doctor had you sit down, on that whatever, that bed or whatever. And, you're sitting there, your legs are hanging over, and he wants to test your reflexes. So he grabbed that little rubber hammer, a little rubber triangular hammer, and hits your knee. Right? And your knee, like your leg, just reacts. Right? And kicks. Right? That reflex response. You didn't control that. You didn't make a decision to do that. It just happened. It was like an automatic response. It was reflex. Same it is with your mental programming. Okay? Like when you get mad about something, you get depressed about something, in whatever way you're triggered, your trigger and the way you responded is based on how you're programmed. Now, how do we program ourselves? How are we programmed? And this is the part. And again, I wanted to make this video because I've just experienced so many people ruin their lives, and they don't understand that, that the way they reacted to a particular situation is based solely off of their mental programming. This is super important, even if it's not, for you, it may not affect you to the extreme to where, you kill somebody. That's kind of, the environment I grew up in, though. I mean, that's what I'm more familiar with, but it may not be that. Your mental programming could cause you to, destroy a really good friendship or relationship, due to how you respond to something, the other person said or did. So it's super important. You can ruin an opportunity, right? Because of how you're programmed. You could destroy a business. You could, end up losing a job because of how you're programmed. So it's super important in order for you to live your best life, to live the highest quality of life that you can live. It's going to largely be based upon your mental programming. Now, how are we programmed? How do we program ourselves? It is through the things that we digest. I refer to these things as, your diet. But I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about the things that we watch, the things that we listen to. Those two things primarily. I mean, really, I I think it's just those two things, period. I can't think of any other reason or any other method of, you being programmed or you programming yourselves through what you see and through what you hear. It's through what you entertain. And it's through what you see and hear the most. What you see and hear the most and what you entertain the most is going to have the more dominant effect on your life and control your mental programming. You ever notice, let me show you how deep this is. I need some more tea. You ever notice that television shows are called programs? You ever really thought about that? Why? why aren't they just called television shows? Broadcasts. Whatever. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things they could be called. Why programs? That's not just something that somebody thought of and that's cute. Let's call them programs. No. They're called programs because that's what they are. They're programs. So when you watch things on TV, whether it's a, sitcom, a movie, whatever it is, this is a form of programming. You are programming yourself to be a certain way. Radio. You ever notice that, the things that's broadcast on the radio are referred to as programs? You have radio programs. You have television programs. That's not just a coincidence. These things that you watch and that you listen to, that you entertain, they program your mind. And the more you entertain, the same things over and over, the more it's going to control how you respond to certain situations. And that's it. Right? It's really just as simple as that. So it's super important. If you care about this, I've experienced personally. I can't afford not to care about it because I'm really not wrapped that tight. And the things that, when I'm triggered, things that make sense for me to do, it's I have to step aside and what is wrong with you? How could that possibly make sense? Are you crazy to even be considering something like that? So no, that's not so much me now, because I've spent a lot of years reprogramming my mind. But in earlier years, bro, there's something wrong with you. You are crazy. Right? How else can we program ourselves or allow ourselves to be programmed? It's always going to come through the things we entertain, through the things that we watch, and through the things that we listen to. But it doesn't always have to come through the avenues of television and radio. People you hang around. You know, it's a common saying that you will become like, or you will be, you know, like an average of the 5 people you hang around the most, or you will become like the 5 people you hang around the most. Something to that effect. But why is that? Because this is what you're surrounding yourself with, these 5 people, and these 5 people are constantly talking, and you're constantly observing, watching. You know, you're observing them and you're listening to them, you're hearing them, and they're programming. That's it. I mean, that's how it works. So that's why it's super important who you choose to hang around. I could give so many examples of this, and unfortunately, I can't think of any good examples. You know, all the examples I could think of, they kind of end up in tragedy, which is not funny at all, but it's just really sad that I don't have any good examples to give of how people were programmed, people that I know personally, of how they were programmed for good. And again, you know, that's just how I came up. I mean, that's what I've been familiar with for so long. And you know, I ended up getting to a point to where I had to just start over. I had to cut everybody off, let everybody go, stop hanging around everybody that I used to hang around every day, people that were like family to me. But I had to let it all go, because I was being programmed either to go to the penitentiary or the cemetery. And I mean, it matters to me, you know, like I care. So, you know, I had to do what I had to do, and that's what I had to do. I had to cut everybody off, let everybody go, and reprogram my mind. So I had to stop listening to all the stuff I was listening to. I had to stop watching all the type of stuff I was watching. Like I would take in so much violence and negativity just through the music I would listen to. Right? I was programming my mind. And that's why, like, I would just react to certain situations the way I would. And it would make sense to me to react that way. Right? And like I said, prisons are full of people that are in that same boat. And it's not until they get sat down and they have, you know, like plenty of time to think about what they did, and then they start the processing, like, exactly. I mean, like, they just, you know, start processing the entire situation. Like, boom, this happened, that happened, that happened. I did that, and now I'm in here, and now I'm probably gonna be in here for a long time. My kids, I miss them. I miss my family. I miss my girlfriend, or I miss my boyfriend. Yada, yada, yada. I don't want to be in here. When all that stuff start to hit them, then they realize, and they usually, like, a lot of people usually come to the conclusion, man, I should not have done that. I wish I wouldn't have done that. I should have just let it go. Right? If it's a relationship, how many times does that happen? You know, people ruin an amazing relationship, right? While they were destroying the relationship, they were operating off of a program. However it was, whether it was through, you know, infidelity, unfaithfulness, cheating, you know, abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, whatever it was, right? It could just be, you know, just not giving that other person time, you know, taking them for granted, not respecting them, not appreciating them, you know, whatever. And then that person leaves. And then what? It's like the person that ruined the relationship, you know, now they're not operating on that program or those programs that they were operating on that destroyed the relationship, and now they regret, right? What happened? Now they're begging that person to come back, right? I can change, I can be different, yada yada yada. But it's important to understand, like, you can't just change like that. You can't just be different. That's not how it works. You don't just make a decision to say, I'm gonna be different, I'm gonna change, and then poof, you're different. That's not how it works. There's a process to it. And in order for a person to change, they have to reprogram themselves to be different, which means you need to take stock of everything that you entertain that supports the behavior that you're trying to change. Whether it's through friends, through family, the stuff you watch on, the programs you watch on TV or listen to on the radio, like whatever it is, the movies, whatever it is. You need to take stock of everything that you entertain that supports your current behavior that you're wanting to get rid of. And then get rid of all of that. And feed yourself something different. You reprogram your mind through the repetition of hearing whatever it is you're hearing. You got to hear it over and over. It's kind of like brainwashing yourself or hypnotizing yourself, you know, in some ways, but it's just, you just got to stop listening and entertaining to things that support the behavior you're trying to get rid of, and start listening to and watching and entertaining things that support the new behavior that you want to adopt. And that's a process, right? That does not happen overnight. That's a process. Like literally, it could take years, you know, depending on how deeply rooted your old programs are. You know, like that phrase that say, I think it say something like "old things die hard" or something like that. You know, it's not easy. I mean, it's simple to change the way you think, to change your mental programming is simple, but it's not easy because you got to be disciplined, you got to be consistent, and it's always going to require you to let go of things and people that you don't want to let go of, but you got to make a choice. Like, how bad do you want to change? How bad do you want to be different? Like for me, it was just no option. It was either change or, like, I could see it, you know, like if I don't change, I'm gonna ruin my life, you know, and I didn't want to ruin my life. So everybody, you know, I don't think everybody can see that in themselves though, or everybody don't, you know, recognize that, or